Hey everyone, my name is Patchworker and welcome to the 11th episode of Patchworker Produces. Today I'll break down my track called With Me. It's my new IDM future-ish track. Let's just get into it. So looking at the project file here, you can see that it's a huge mess. Like my synth folder has a bunch of subfolders that are called like synth intro, fills intro, but they go throughout the entire track. And the reason why it's so messy is that I actually started this track about 7 to 8 months ago, I think. And something wasn't really clicking. I wasn't really happy with the mix down or anything. And I just let it sit for like 4 or 5 months without touching it. And now I got back to it again and completely changed the entire structure. So let's just go in the beginning and hear what the first bit sounds like. So I think that the most interesting thing in the first section happens down there in this triplet chords synth. Of course, it sounds like this. And the rhythm, or like the sort of drive that there's to this particular synth, comes from a thing that I will show you. It mostly comes from this auto pan here. If I turn this one off, it sounds like this. So you can hear that it's very sort of linear. There's nothing much happening. There's just like this arpeggiator in chord trigger that triggers the chord every 16th note, and the massive patch is just playing some synth on top. But if I turn the auto pan on, it sounds like this. So in the auto pan down there, I turn the phase all the way down to 0 degrees so that it becomes like a chopper. Basically, this decreases in volume. And I set the rate to 3/8 of a note. And that makes the sort of polyrhythm feel that you can hear throughout this little synth. And that makes it instantly more interesting. If we have a look there in this huge fills folder, there are those kind of fills here. And those fills came, most of them, from separate sound design sessions. If I unfreeze this, I will be able to show you the entire thing. Basically, it's just like one huge sound design session. It sounds like this. So most of it is crap, but I just found the little fills that I liked. Same for here. If I unfreeze this and extend this one, it's gonna sound like crap. But that's usually the way I come up with my fills anyway. I usually just like load a plugin inside and have it play like a random line. And then I just like smash through presets, records the whole thing. I smash it then into different plugins that chop it up nicely and make it interesting. I come up with a different audio file, and then I just take the little bits of audio that I find interesting. Let's have a look at the first sort of drop slash build-up, and it sounds like this. So I have a bunch of synth playing here on the top end of the spectrum. And I think the one that started the whole track is actually this one called Synth Intro. This is the first synth that that sort of kickstarted the idea really. And it sounds like this. It's like a super basic future-ish sound. It's just like a detuned double saw wave with a low pass filter. And it just sounds like this. And again, I have those fills down there. But this time they mess around with an audio sample coming from an a cappella. So I just basically took one bit of the a cappella and extended it. Then I threw it into some reverb, did the usual processing. And if I have a look down there, There's also a bunch of fills happening. This one is just like this one little sample of the main sound that you just heard that is played at a different pitch in sampler. And basically I just messed around until the puzzle was complete. Let's move on to the first and only, really, drop, if I may call it so, I don't really know. It sounds like this. So here again, the sort of same structure applies, the same chord progression. I also have a bunch of fills down there that play crazy stuff. So that's the usual, and this time I have tons of stuff happening in the synths. I have 4 layers over here, sounds like. I have the basic, but also those mid. Let's have a look at this patch, actually. I think it's interesting. If I unfreeze this, it sounds like this. Basically, I just messed around in operator. I do have the arpeggiator turned on in chord trigger again, so that it sounds like a chord every time. And again, if I turn these auto pans off, it sounds like this. And with them on, it cuts up the audio every 16th of a note, and it sounds like this. I have a pad over here. I have another synth down there. And all together, they sound pretty nice. I also have those fills here. And lastly, this bell sound over here. This one is very easy. It's just like a square wave with a very heavy auto pan so that each note plays in one ear, which you can hear. Maybe one thing that I want to talk about that I don't usually mention in those walkthroughs are the hi-hats this time. Oops. The hi-hats are, I think, the thing that makes the tension rise at the end of this drop. And at the end, they sound like this. So there are 4 layers here. One of them is just a hi-hat sample. The other one is this high perks here. And then there's this little rise here that is basically one sample played over and over again, increasing in volume. And at the end, there's this crash, this reverse crash symbol. And I thought that the way of layering some hi-hats, even though they play the same rhythm, but they have a different timbre, like this sample here, sounds extremely different from this one. And itself sounds different from this one. I think they play an important role in the track, and I wanted to share that too. And then we can move on to the last bit, the outro of the song. And the way in this outro happens with a nice little sample here, and it sounds like this. So this was actually a happy accident. I messed around a bit more with the a cappella that I messed around with earlier. This sample, like the tune that I took the a cappella from, was in key with my track, which was a happy accident. I didn't know it was. But I just messed around a bit and tried some different ways to lead into this outro. And I realized that this line fit perfectly with the key of my track and also the rhythm, etc. So I just automated a bit of EQ8 to open up the higher frequencies as it goes. And I also have a flanger and some reverb to make it sound a bit spicier, because otherwise it sounds like this. And with the effects, so yeah, I like this quite a bit. And maybe one last little trick. It's not really a trick. I mean, it's pretty common sense. It's not a huge game changer, but I really like taking the same vocal snippet and make it play 1 octave above or below and different intervals above or below the main sample, because this creates a chord then. So I have here the original sample. I have here one pitch down. And I have here one that I think is, it's 5 semitones up from the original. So together they create this nice little chord, and it sounds like this. And here again, the whole thing is pitched down an entire octave. So there you go, that was my track called With Me. I hope you enjoyed this little walkthrough and that you heard or learned some more interesting stuff. Maybe you can implement them in your own productions. In any case, my name is Patchworker, and I'll see you next time.